I write applications. I've been doing AI applications for over 10 years. I've written generative AI application for a couple of years. But I thought I would try and help teach more about how to do it. Unfortunately, there's a lot of to understand how to do it on your own so that you don't have to be relying on tutorials. There's a lot of parts that are helpful to know. I was talking to a friend of mine about this a little bit, and I realized that if you want to build some steps for whatever reason, you want to build some stairs, you can easily find a DIY that will walk you through how to do it. But that means you know how to build those steps and from that plan. You don't necessarily know how to build steps for a different situation or different kind of wood, or what happens if the ground isn't completely level. Um, so I want to try and give a background in terms of so that you understand when you use a nail, when you use a screw, when you use different kinds of hammers, different kinds of saws. There's a lot of different tools that go into making steps or into building with carpentry, with wood. Um, so you don't just say, well, I'm going to learn carpentry. There's a lot you need to learn while you're doing it. And that's kind of the same way with AI applications. This builds on what we've been doing for a long time with building applications in general. It's just now we have some additional layers, complexity that go into it. So I decided to start with this up here to give a kind of a map as to where I'm going to go. So the first video is this one, an intro to AI applications. And then we're going to talk about Fast API, mainly because that's what I use a lot to do prototyping. I think somewhere in here I need to do something about going to production. You're not going to take Fast API to production, most likely. You can, but it's probably not the best tool, honestly. And then we're going to talk about UI, going from unstructured to structured data. That might make more sense when by the time we get there. And when we talk about, these are going to be probably different videos, so a lot of them will be short. Where we talk about prompts, prompting, why you write prompts, what type of prompts, and some of the ideas that we have that are no longer needed. Embedding is going to become important. When we talk about vector databases, relational databases, and graphing databases, I use all those. Then we'll talk about making a text-only reg and basically a Q&A bot. This is what most people tend to start with, by the way, when you just sit there and say, okay, well, I'm going to read in a PDF and I'm going to create a chatbot. It's a text-only reg. Then we'll talk about multimodal LLMs and probably and diffusion models. Maybe more than one video. We'll see how I want to do that. And then we'll talk about co-poly and multimodal retrieval and going beyond that. So this is dealing with if your documents are not just text. You want to pull out charts, you want to pull out tables, things like that. How do you deal with that? That's what those deal with. And then I'm going to talk about classical machine learning. It's probably going to be multiple videos. Deep learning. So PyTorch, TensorFlow, and I'm going to mention JAX. I don't use JAX because I don't have multiple GPUs. So, but JAX is, if you have that kind of setup, JAX can be immensely useful. Then we're going to talk about explainability, responsible AI, define agents, talk about governance. This is going to be critical because if you're going to be going into production, you need to have some sort of rules or framework around what you're doing. Um, Attacks and misusing the application, and then we'll get into routing and orchestration, and then going to production. There's probably going to be some other videos I'll probably be adding to this, but this is the basic start of how I'm going to be doing this. Um, so, for example, I'm going to be talking a lot about my AI debate platform. um, let's see here. It's not that one. It's this one here, actually. So, this is something that I started working on that is, I realize that too often we have AI, we go to like ChatGPT and we have an idea, and then it will just say, that's a great idea, and it won't really argue with you. And I wanted something that could come back at me and challenge me, so I'd have to defend it and have better supporting documents for my idea. So that was the whole point of this application, is a way to do that. And you'll see over time, I'll keep talking about it, and I'll keep on making modifications to it, because I'm still writing it. But like right now, you have this, and I allow different ways to give information, and then I have some instructions down here. So this application is what I'm going to be laying out for here. So introducing an application, we have the client layer, which I tend to use a lot of HTML, JavaScript, CSS. And then we also have, we can upload files and because you need supporting evidence. And then I use Fast API on port 9540. This is a one application. There is no multiple agents. It's actually one of the simpler ones I've done. And I use Olama. So you won't see any of this on GitHub, because I don't care to have what I'm doing, what I'm playing with, as training data. I also don't use Facebook, and I use LinkedIn, YouTube, obviously. I don't really do much on social media and Reddit. So I don't care to have a lot of my information going as training data. If you use OpenAI's tools and you sit there and say, well, I'm going to give them my financial information, and then they're going to tell me how I should invest. Well, congratulations, you've just given them more training data. So people can find your financial data in prompts by accident. So to me, it's just a bad idea to be giving a lot of information to these companies. So I don't do that. So everything I do will be locally hosted for that reason. And then I have a file processor, and then I use Whisper AI for dealing with the audio. I need to add to this because I'm going to be using a different tool I found lately, MoviePie or something, for dealing with videos. But I'm not using the image part of the video. I'm just going to be taking the transcript out of it. So it's Whisper AI. And FM MPEG for that. And then I'm using Postgres and with PG Vector because I have sessions, and I want to have where I will only want to look for embeddings for vectors that relate to to my session. I don't care to have it using documents from a different debate in this one. So I'm using Postgres and PG Vector. And then, but you can kind of see how it goes. And then I try and lay out kind of how things flow. It's nice to, as you're working on something, to have a basic idea of how things will work. Just that way you can, as you're developing, you know what the plan is. And so I do, and then you lay out your database schema. I like sequence diagrams, things like that. So, but this is kind of, I don't do this ahead of time, and sometimes I'll actually, for example, when I'm going to like these scripts, I actually will have an LLM develop them for me at times, because I don't really always care to go through and do all this. But what happens is after you get enough of these done, then you start to copy the files from one project to another. And so you'll see me doing that at times, where even in this project, if when I'm going to be processing PDF files, I won't do anything new. I'll copy it from a different application. And it might be this one, yeah. So this application here, I'll be using, I have a lot more information for processing files. And so I'll probably be using this um, for moving to the application. And that's what you're going to find after a while when you're doing this is there's a lot of similar parts, but again, just understand the basics first. And then as you start to work and you start to learn, then you can sit there and say, okay, now I want to do this, but I can take some of what I've been doing over here and I can move it here and speed it up. And that'll make life a little bit easier. So that's the basic idea as to what this whole series is going to be about. I don't know how many videos it's going to take. We'll see where it ends up. Okay? But you have a wonderful day. Bye.